So I wanted to introduce this instrument. It's a very old instrument. It was made in the early 18th century in what was then, I guess, Bohemia, now the area of the Czech Republic. Yeah, so it's a pretty unusual instrument. It is basically very much a jigsaw puzzle. Like if you look around, there's multiple cracks. It's had a really hard life. So I don't know, back about 8 years ago or so, I had it physically restored, so meaning having all the cracks and everything patched and repaired so that it's in sound physical condition. At that point, the instrument was set up as a modern cello. I'll talk about the difference a little bit in a minute. And then Donna Fournier from Allemande took the instrument for me to Bill Monacle in Staten Island, and he then converted it back to its original Baroque setup. So the instrument is much happier at this setup. Before, the sound was kind of tight. I think steel strings and all the pressure of the higher pitch was a little bit difficult for this older, not in great shape instrument to handle. Now that it's back to a lower pitch, it's quite happy. And the lower the pitch, the better, because you know when we play with Baroque instruments, we can play anywhere from 392 to 430, and you know anywhere in between there. Typically at 415, which is what we use a lot for the Bach Collegium. But the lower the better. This cello really loves that low pitch. So some differences between Baroque cello and modern cello. The first one that you'll notice is there's no end pin. There's just a little button on the bottom. So you hold the instrument in your calf muscles. So some people say, oh, isn't that hard? You know, aren't you squeezing a lot? I only squeeze if I get really nervous. But actually, it just simply rests on their calf muscles, which is why your feet are a little bit turned out. With modern playing, you tend to have a much more square stance, which if I tried that, the cello would just slip right down. So turn our legs out a little bit. The disadvantage of this for sound is that much more of your body surface is in contact with the resonating box. I mean, basically, these are just boxes that are hollow inside that vibrate. So with more physical contact, the sound is a bit softer. That also results from the strings. So the strings, instead of being synthetic strings which are wound in steel, the upper two of this instrument are raw gut, and you can probably see the color. They look kind of like rubber band color, sometimes more white depending on the string. So these are raw sheep's gut, which have basically just been twisted and evened out. I don't know that process. I would love to learn about it a little bit. So they're raw gut, and then the bottom two are gut that's wound, typically in silver, sometimes in synthetic substances. But yeah, and the reason that the bottom two are not raw is because if they were raw, they'd be so thick that it would take a much heftier bow to get the string to actually vibrate. So they're wound so that you can get more of a grip and be able to play them with more ease. So the fingerboard is shorter than modern cello, so I'll show you the modern in a little bit. There's usually about that much more fingerboard, so we can play those high Dvorak cello concerto licks and things like that. So fingerboard's a little bit shorter. Bridge is a little bit flatter, so there's less of a pivot between the strings. If you look at a viola da gamba, the bridge is even flatter than this yet, so you have an underhand bow grip and you can really pivot easily between strings and also strike multiple strings at once, which is nice for chordal work. Another big difference, no fine tuners. You can see the gut strings are just right into the tailpiece here. And the reason for that is fine tuners are better for steel strings because fine tuners are for making little tiny adjustments. And if we had that with the gut string, natural gut is so stretchy that you'd have to keep twisting, and the fine tuner would actually be not very effective at all. So we mainly use the regular tuners. So Baroque bow, quite different from our modern bow. Actually, let me pull the modern one up so you can see a little bit the difference. The main difference you'll probably notice right away. So this is a modern, like French model bow, and you'll see the curvature goes this way. And the Baroque bow, the curvature is the opposite way. So the downward curvature gives a more even feel from frog to tip. With the Baroque bow setup, there's a natural bounce or bloom within the bow itself, which affects quite a bit the way that we utilize articulation and shape. in Baroque playing. So it really, the equipment really does inform the performance practice. So it's something I love. I feel like, personally, for me, Baroque bows are much more alive in the hand. So it's really fun. It feels more interactive than when I'm using my modern bow. That's just personal preference. I'm sure some of the modern players might disagree. So anyway, I'll play maybe a little bit of Bach to give you the idea of the Baroque sound. And then I'll show you the modern cello and play maybe the same passage on the modern so we get an idea of some of the difference. So, make sure I'm in tune. How about some of the Allemande from the G major suite? So Allemande is a Baroque dance form. This dance tended to be a bit of a processional with some walking-like steps and leaps or foot extensions. But at this point, it wouldn't have been danced anymore. Bach was using a stylized version, which is mainly instrumental work.